Hey everyone, we are going to do a deep dive in 3 of the most popular personality tests for entrepreneurs: the Birkman, the Enneagram, and the Kolbe. Stay tuned. Okay, so for some of you who don't know all of these personality tests, maybe you know of one but you don't know the other, let me get us all on the same page here. I'm going to go through a quick overview of the differences between the 3, and then I'm going to get into a little bit of my analysis and even show you what my personality test results show, so you are more aware of what to expect if you wanted to take one. So the first one is Kolbe. When I went on their website, I was able to find that Kolbe was started in 1975. Enneagram, it said late 1960s. Birkman, 1950s. The next thing is, how long does it take to take this personality test? How much time should you set aside? So Kolbe, it's 20 minutes because it's 36 questions. Enneagram, 40 minutes, 144 questions. And Birkman is 30 minutes, 298 questions. And again, the time is probably a recommendation. I'm sure some people might take longer, some people might be faster. So that's the breakdown of how long and how many questions you'll be answering. So what's interesting is that the Birkman actually has almost 300 questions as opposed to Kolbe being 36, Enneagram being 144. Next, the report that I received, and this page number of your report might vary because you're able to add cover pages and whatnot, and so I'm telling you the number of pages my reports were. So for the Kolbe A, I got an 18-page report. For Enneagram, I got a 42-page report, and for the Birkman, I got a 33-page report. And also, to give you a little bit of history and a little bit of credibility, I also did some research on which companies are some of the clients for these personality tests. So basically, what companies are using these specific personality tests for their business. Because like I said, I picked the 3 best entrepreneur, business-oriented personality tests for us today. So for Kolbe, I was able to find Intel, Hershey, Charles Schwab, Alaska Airlines, American Red Cross, Strategic Coach, Campbell's, and Department of Defense. For Enneagram, I found Best Buy, Mitsubishi, Toyota, Avon, and Beacon. And for Birkman, I found Costco, Fox, Goodwill, Walmart, Waste Management, Salesforce, MailChimp, Google, Chevron, Duracell, Pfizer, and Emory University. And again, I'm sure there's a lot more than the ones I named, but those were just some of the names that popped out as far as recognizable brands. So that's a quick overview of all the factual aspects of the 3 personality tests. I hope that's enough to get you up to speed. And now I'm going to just spend the next few minutes talking about my actual report. I'm going to show you the report, what I like and dislike about each one, and give you my final conclusion of what I think is the best personality test out of the 3. First up, we're going to talk about the Kolbe assessment. So I think the Kolbe is a lot more technologically advanced amongst the 3 personality tests. What I love about how you get your results is that it's delivered through URL, and I've taken my first one back in 2016, and I still can access my results from back then, as long as you know your login info. Of course, you can always reset your passwords, so as long as you know which email you used to create it, you can go back and reference it. So that's what I love about Kolbe, is that it's all on the web. And the second thing I love is that on every page, you have a audio recording that explains what's happening on that page, and it's short. It's less than 2 minutes.
Pattern of taking action, the behaviors that you will use in any situation, any day, any time, as long as you are striving and as long as you are working toward either a decision or some kind of action in the creative problem-solving process. So your MO doesn't come into effect when you're relaxed or doing recreational things. At that time,
and that's just a little segment of what she's explaining. And so what I love is that you can be going through your report and you're not quite sure what it means. You can play the audio and you're able to understand a little bit better about what the report is telling you. So from the report, I'm able to see that my strength is definitely in follow through. And again, higher the number does not mean that you're good at it, and lower the number means that you're bad. It just means you are on a different spectrum of where you excel or your strengths are. And so in the implementer space, I might be more envision versus demonstrate, and things like that, or simplify versus specify. So those are some things that I think by nature, when we see this, you just think, okay, I'm great at this and I'm bad at this. And that's not the case. And that's why I love that there's an audio that walks you through. I don't know how they customize it, because they do. I had done the Kolbe with a couple of team members and we each had slightly different audios. So they do put the audio that matches your general number sequence. And so I wonder if there's just a set number of potential outcomes, and so they kind of pre-recorded some of these things. So those are just some questions that come through my mind, but that's how my mind thinks. But yeah, the other thing I do like about the Kolbe is that they really simplify it for you. They don't try to complicate it and make super lengthy paragraphs of information. And I love that they take possibly some weaknesses, and then they word it in a way where it's asking you, do you find yourself saying things like this? And if so, how about saying it like this? And so it's kind of interesting how it's breaking it down to how I might be able to process it in a more tangible way. Because ultimately, I feel like if you don't utilize the personality test, then it doesn't mean anything. You just wasted 30 minutes and you got a report, and if you don't ever look at it again, it's not really helping you. And so that's kind of my overview. If you want something super simple, easy to understand, some audio to help guide you, the Kolbe test is a great way to go. Next, we have the Enneagram. And the Enneagram is a little newer for me. I recently heard about it. And one of the things I love about it is that it's simple. You only memorize one number, one of 1 through 9, and you're able to share where you fall, and you're able to ask others where they are and be able to quickly identify their strengths, as far as, are they a perfectionist, helper, achiever, so all of these things. And so that's what I liked. I felt like it's easy to communicate with other people, it's easy to remember, and you're able to connect at that deeper level quickly. So I'm a number 2, consider it helper. If I run into another number 2, it'd be easy for us to connect, knowing that we might lean towards how we function and think and process a little more similarly, because that's ultimately what these personality tests kind of do. They help to allow you to see and understand how you tend to process things. The thing I think is a bit hard for me is that it is a bit a lot of content here, and there wasn't a lot of additional support to help you understand it. So with the Kolbe, it was just nice to have those audio files to walk you through it. We'll be going over Birkman, but Birkman also has a way to help you kind of process what you're reading. This one, I felt a little bit like I was on my own, and so I just needed to read and understand all the content that's on here. think another thing to note is that it had the most amount of pages. Mine had 42 pages, but it didn't have the most questions. So definitely they were very content rich in their report. And so that was another thing I would point out. Lastly, we have the Birkman. So one thing I like about the Birkman is that it is also content rich, but it's done a great job of using colors to make it a little bit easier for you to process. And so, like I mentioned, how Kolbe has the 4 numbers, you do have the 4, not so much numbers, but you've got your 4 symbols. So you've got interests, usual behavior, needs, and stress behavior. And so, interestingly, I'm in the green for all 4, and you'll kind of get an idea of what green means. Green's definitely a lot more on the social. This blue is more the thinker. So as you can see, introvert, extrovert. So more extroverted and people versus task-oriented. So like accountants and admins might be a little bit more here. Extrovert, task-oriented also. It could be accountants, or it could be people who are very like able to follow SOPs, maybe even create SOPs, things like that. So I fall into the green category for all of them, actually. So for usual behavior, this is where I thrive. This is my needs. I felt like this was something that was very interesting for me. I am most comfortable when I know who's in charge. So if I am in a workplace or team-oriented place where there's just chaos because there's no one who is stepping up to lead or take charge, it actually says under my stress behavior that if I don't see that someone is in charge, I will have to step up and take that role. It's not something I love doing, but I will do that. And so those are just some of the takeaways I've gotten through the Birkman that have been very informative for me. A couple other types of reports that it has I really enjoyed was how you might upset others without intending to do so. That's always great to know, because I might be doing something that I had no idea that might upset someone, and how others may unintentionally annoy you. And so these are just really great insights, and it's very, very specific to you and your situation, and based on your symbols and your colors. And so those are some of the deeper things that I felt it really conveys really well. So for example, let's go to, okay, so going back to that example of needing to know who's in charge. You need personal and clear instructions as to what to expect. You expect people who appear to be natural authority figures, expect them to enforce strictly the boundaries of authority. You can easily lose respect for those in positions of authority when it seems they are having difficulty showing strength. Your morale and enthusiasm suffers in these situations. And possible stress behaviors, provocative statements, undue assertiveness, become bossy and domineering. This one was really interesting for me. I really spent a lot of time unpacking this whole scenario, and I've even played things out with previous managers or bosses and whatnot, and how my stress behavior did come out. I did not say provocative statements, but I may have shown a lack of enthusiasm for certain things. And so I think obviously this may come out in different ways, but I think it's in line with what it's trying to imply. And so these are just some of the things that I have learned and taken away from the Birkman. So just to recap, that is Kolbe, Enneagram, and Birkman. And so here is the final conclusion. So I'm sure you may have sensed, but my favorite is the Birkman. I have had a lot of aha moments and realizations about myself from the Birkman and how it's laid out my usual behavior, my needs, and then my stress behavior. I've literally played out situations with colleagues, with spouses, with friends, where there may have been a misunderstanding of whatnot, and like the stress behaviors that came out from it, and it just played out play by play. It was incredible. And because of that, I went out and actually became a certified Birkman consultant. So, big bias there. So my winning choice is the Birkman. The one thing I didn't go over is the cost. So Kolbe starts at about $55. The Enneagram also about that price. So it's about $60 for the basic, $120 for the professional. And the Birkman actually will vary, because the only way you can take the Birkman is to reach out to a consultant. They don't even allow this assessment to float around there for people to just take and pay $100 for. That's because they felt like it required analysis of going through and walking through what each of the report sections mean. They don't want people to just walk away with the report and not know what to do with it. And that's exactly how I felt when I was going through the Enneagram. So if you're interested in taking any of these assessments, I'll have the links down below. If you're interested in the Birkman, because like I said, you can only take it through a consultant, I am happy to help and administer that for you. So that link to doing that is also down below. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave me a comment below.